All right. Welcome everybody to this webinar sponsored by the Funders Collaborative on Youth Organizing on Digital Organizing Strategies. We're going to give it just another quick minute as we see lots of folks are signing on right now. Thanks for joining us. We'll be getting started in just 1 minute. We're pausing for just 1 second. We'll be starting in a second. All right, looks like we have lots of folks showing up, so we will go ahead and get started. Looking forward to having more folks join us as we get going. My name is Eric Braxton. I'm the Executive Director of the Funders Collaborative on Youth Organizing, and we're really excited to have you all here for the first in our series of webinars on digital organizing specifically for youth organizing groups. Over and over the last couple of weeks, we've been hearing from youth organizing groups about the challenges of continuing to organize while maintaining physical distance. And so we're really excited to be partnering with Social Movement Technologies on these 2 webinars. But before I get started, I just want to acknowledge and say that, we at FCYO realize that this is a really pivotal moment that we're living in. And we don't know how this is going to play out, but what we know is that working class young people and gender oppressed young people are going to play critical roles in building the kind of movements that we need. So we at FCYO are trying to do whatever we can do to support youth organizing groups in this moment. And I know some of y'all may have been part of some of the other webinars or seen some of the other resources, but I just want to flag a few things really quickly before we get started. So in addition to these webinars, you may have seen that we've been partnering with the Alliance for Educational Justice, the Advancement Project, Communities for Just Schools Fund, and the Center for Popular Democracy on the virtual assemblies for youth organizers. You may know that the next virtual assembly is going to be on April 23rd. So please keep an eye out for the email announcement that should be going out, as well as for those of you that were on the last virtual assembly with some of the political education that we did, the facilitator's guide for that will be getting email blasted out from FCYO later today. So keep an eye out for the announcement about the next virtual assembly. The other thing that I want to make sure that folks know about is that FCYO has created a small rapid response fund. They're grants of up to $2,000, so they're very small grants with priority going to smaller organizations. I just dropped in the chat a link if you're interested in applying for that. We're accepting applications for that work now, which is to help groups do whatever you need to do to be pivoting strategically in this moment, whether that's purchasing technology that you realize you need after this webinar or other ways that you're supporting material needs of your staff and your young people. So just know that we know what a crucial time this is. We know how important the work that your organizations are doing, and we at FCYO hope to be in partnership with you all about supporting that critical work. So with that said, we're excited to get started with this webinar series. Again, we've been hearing over and over from youth organizing groups about what do we need, what are the tools, how can we pivot to remote organizing from a face-to-face organizing, So we're really excited to be partnering with the folks at Social Movement Technologies who have been training organizers really around the world over this last time period and have put together some fabulous tools to help groups in that time. And we're excited to offer something that is specifically designed for youth organizing groups. So remember that this is the first in a 2-part series. This webinar is going to focus on transitioning to a remote organizing team. And then we have a second webinar that will be on next Friday, April 17th at 2 p.m. Eastern, that will focus on organizing strategies for remote organizing strategies. So again, really excited to partner with Social Movement Technologies, and I will now turn it over to Hannah Roditi and Mickey Jordan from Social Movement Technologies to lead us through this process. Thanks for being here, everybody.
Thanks, Eric. Yeah, glad to be here too. My name is Hannah Roditi. I'm the Director of Social Movement Technologies and longtime union and community organizer. Helped to found the organization 7 years ago when we started. And Mickey, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, for sure. So my name is Mickey Jordan. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a staff partner with Social Movement Technologies, and I also work full-time for Southerners on New Ground, or SONG. And my primary work is around graphic design. I helped with Social Movement Technologies graphic design apprenticeship last year. And also I do a lot of kind of like tech and digital organizing work as well.
Yes. It would be super helpful if you all would chat in for Mickey and me to get a sense of who you are and what you're hoping to get out of this session. If you could chat in your organization, where you're based, just what you're excited for in today's session, it would be very useful. So I'm just going to wait and see what some of these chats are. And in the meantime, while you guys are doing that, the slides are, we can share the link to the slides. I think we shared it once, I don't know, but if that could be shared again, that would be great. And there's also going to be some share notes. So Californians, Youth Power, Packard Foundation, Inner City Struggle, yes. Milwaukee, Foster Youth, yeah. Connecticut. I'm based in Connecticut, so we're neighbors there. Native Americans in Philanthropy, interesting, great. American Friends Service Committee, Global Youth Network. Wow, this is an awesomely amazing group here online. So I cannot wait to go through this with you all, and also for you to be sharing what you're doing. Make the Road New York, fantastic group. Yes, great. So yeah, I'm really excited about the community that we are here and how we're going to spend the next 90 minutes. And actually, we can squeeze this into like probably a little over an hour without any engagement. But what I'm really looking forward to is that, and hi Channing, to see you again. And I hope, I'm wondering how things are going out there in LA. So yeah, let's go on. So actually I want to show you one thing, which is I'm going to share this link in the chat here. This is the community document that we have been, that a lot of people have been participating in building out. And you can access this later, don't have to access it now. But it's a place where you can provide feedback at the very end, anonymous feedback, and we look at that very carefully and would love to hear what you think. But also, this is a place where if you scroll down, so this section about community action tool recommendations, that's going to be more relevant at the end of the, after the next session. But for this session here, you have kind of practices, tools and practices around building a remote team that for smaller groups with 10 or fewer staff. So these are all practices and tools we're going to talk about in this session. And if many of you are doing all kinds of fantastic things in terms of our teams, and we would love to just add a plus sign if there are things here, you know, during or after the session that you want to recommend to other people, that'd be great. And then there's a table down below this for groups that are a little larger with 11 or more staff. I mean, we're just arbitrarily putting it off at 11, but and recognizing that larger groups often have slightly different needs for tool combinations. And so if you want to get an idea there and weigh in there, that would be great. Okay, so that's kind of a community, an ongoing community resource that that folks are building out. So a little bit very quickly, who Social Movement Technologies is. We're a nonprofit unionized movement partner. We're proud members of the Pacific Media Workers Guild, which is part of the Communication Workers of America. We do online organizing, strategy training, and staffing to engage members and win campaigns in the digital age. We've trained staff and leaders from 2,400 groups in their first 7 years. And we've worked with over 70 movement organizations in a more in-depth way on campaigns and assessments. Mickey and I introduced ourselves already. So let's talk about, by the end of the hour, here's what we think we hope you'll be more knowledgeable about, and perhaps we will also be more knowledgeable about with suggestions from you all. Running effective online meetings, apps for connecting visually with people not at computers, useful practices and policies for remote teams, tech stacks for remote teams, and digital security considerations. And here is what we are not going to cover today. As important as it is, general working from home recommendations, there's a lot out there already on that. Maintaining our sanity recommendations, right? Like super important, but there's a lot out there already on that. We also aren't going to be talking about organizing now in this moment. And that's because, as Eric mentioned, we're going to be doing that in the next session. So the next session will focus on creative, all digital organizing actions and offline community building actions that incorporate the need for physical distancing. And it's very exciting, actually, what different groups are experimenting with in the last like couple of weeks. There's been a real ramp up of that. And I think many of you all are doing some really fantastic stuff, experimenting with it. And so that'll be really fun. So let's just cover a good use of time expectation here. And I want to say that, you know, when I think about spending, you know, a chunk of time, an hour, hour and a half in a webinar, in an online meeting, I am hoping to get at least one thing out of it, that either a tool I can use or a way of thinking about something that helps me shift a little bit or gives me an idea of something to do differently in my work. And so, and sometimes just that one thing, right, is tremendous, can really make us enable us to work more efficiently or change how we're doing things. And so that's what I want to encourage everybody to bring to this today. And there's a huge range, right, within this collective that we are here today. There's kind of beginners and people from very tiny groups. And then there's people who are, you know, been doing this a long time from very large groups. And so there's a huge range. And so, yeah, how does it sound to you? And I'm wondering then, like, does everybody see the hand? Can you raise your hand? Is that visible in this? Can folks raise their hand in this or no? No? Guess not. So chat in then. Chat in if that sounds good to you. Does this sound good to you? Raise thumbs. Sounds good? Yes? I'm seeing some yeses here. I just want to make sure we're all together on this. Yeah? Okay. Cool. Let's go on then. All right. So we have a couple of polls, and let's see. Am I putting these up, or maybe I'll just do them since I know that they're here. No. So yeah, the first one is, what best describes your team? And I've had Zoom not consistently showing polls lately. So is that showing? Yeah,
it's up there.
Good, good. Okay. So what best describes your team? Have you operated mostly, you know, in an office, or has it been a mix? Or, and I'm talking about before everybody had to kind of go to remote. Or have you been mostly a remote team for a while? Okay, I'm going to end the poll and share the results. And if people seeing the results? Are they visible? Yeah. Okay, cool. So half of you have been operating out of offices almost completely, I mean, inside offices, almost completely up until now. And so this is a big deal to go remote. Yeah. And then a quarter of you have had a mix, and the other quarter have been mostly remote. Yeah, so the ones who've been operating remotely for a while now, you probably have some things to teach the rest of us, right? Okay, and then the
Hey,
other,
Hannah, we're getting notes in the chats that the results aren't showing up. Can you
let
hit,
me
what
see.
happens when you hit shared results?
Yeah, are you seeing them now? Oh, you can see them now. Okay, good. All right. Yeah, so you can see half of you all have a big transition happening, and then a quarter of you have been at this for a while. Okay. And then the other poll that I'm going to throw up is your level of experience. Are you seeing that poll showing? Yes, good. So how would you describe your level of experience in digital campaigning? Beginner, intermediate, or advanced? Okay, I'm going to end the poll. Are you seeing the results? Yes, good. Okay. Yeah, so 80% of you feel like you're beginners at digital campaigning. Well, you know, you are in the right place. Those of you who are intermediate are in the right place. Those of you who are advanced, that small percentage, like you have a huge opportunity to share what you know. Okay, great. Okay, so here is an opportunity. You guys have seen these before, right? I'm gonna get out of sharing presentation mode, share this with everyone. And what you're invited to do is come into the slide deck. But you know what? Only if your first name is at the beginning of the alphabet. There's too many of you in this. It's gonna crash if everybody comes into this. So if your first name begins with like A to G, would love you to come into this slide and pick up a fruit and drag it to what's true for you. So no experience with being part of a remote team, lots of experience with being part of a remote team. Oh, you know what? This is not editable. Okay, hold on. Let me change this. This happens like every once in a while. I forget to change it. Okay, so if you refresh, that should work. Or are you very confident, very nervous about this? I see a lot of people coming in, but probably not very many people have, if your first name begins anywhere from A to F, you're going to be dragging the fruits around. Okay. Good. And now if your first name begins with F, what comes after F? G-H-I-J. Why don't you try weighing in on this? Okay, so we have people who, you know, you have a bunch of experience here with being part of a remote team. Some of you are pretty anxious about it. Okay, so we're going to keep going here then. All right, so the next thing is, so first of all, since we don't want this to crash, those of you who have a first name from N to Z, you're going to go to this slide, slide 10, and type in one thing we need to improve on my team is, if you double click on the blurb, you can type in your comment. And those of you who are earlier in the alphabet can do the slide 9. And the only thing is that if you can't get in, it's because the system's overwhelmed. And I'm actually going to keep moving forward because I don't want to slow things down too much. But the other place that we would really like to hear from you is slide 11 and 12, which is my favorite tool I use in my team that I want to recommend is. Well, there's just a lot of wisdom and experience here, and we're trying to collect it in a place where you guys have, you know, have access to it after this. So I'm going to go back and see what people have written here. Okay. One thing we need to improve on my team. Get to brainstorming and facilitation in team meetings. Keeping staff motivated and holding them accountable when working entirely from home. Yeah. Consistency and accountability, helping our youth to engage their base, communication, teamwork, consistency in meeting times and organizing big groups, not miss the small details of updates when we don't see each other regularly, get to know the multiple options available and what best fits our goals. Okay. And then this next one, communication about meeting being rescheduled, communication about tasks getting done, what each person is doing each day, learning and adapting to new technologies. Yeah, great, okay. And then let's see, favorite tools. Trello, we're gonna be talking about Trello today. Great, virtual games to get people moving, interesting. Facebook Messenger, motivational interviewing, interesting. Google Docs. Canva, yeah. Monday, Mural, and Zoom. Yeah, okay. I'm gonna go back into presentation mode here. So why does good campaign management and team communication matter so much? And even more so when working remotely? Why is it like more so when working remotely? Chat in if you have thoughts about that. What's at stake here? I mean, we can waste a lot of time and energy, right? It affects our movement work, it affects our personal lives. Feeling inefficient and unorganized can lead to stress and burnout, right? And more so if we're kind of alone with it. Yeah, because you need to be able to trust your team with the things happening. Yeah, it can discourage leaders and volunteers from getting more involved, right? But on the other hand, if our tools and systems make it easy, work can really feel more joyful, right? We can make better decisions, we can work better as a team, and we can absorb and engage supporters effectively and grow the movement. And so I want to share this. How many people have, chat in if you have or haven't heard of a talk about a tech stack. Have you heard that expression before, a tech stack? No. So it just means the combination of tools that you're using in your work to get stuff done. And the reason it's important to think about and be intentional about our tech stack as organizing groups is because increasingly, tools are changing all the time, and they need to work well together. And we should be constantly kind of pruning the combination of tools that we're using and being more intentional about it rather than just like haphazard, like, oh, I heard about this great tool, let's try it out, or just kind of someone has previous experience with a tool, and so like, why not grab that and use it? No, we need to be more intentional about it. And so let's start with the basics. I'm turning this over to you, Mickey.
Great, thank you. Okay, so before I get into this slide, why do y'all think it's important to plan for how to be productive when you're working from home? Like, I know there are a lot of folks who aren't really a part of remote teams, or it's not a large part of your job. So like, why would it be important to plan for how to be productive while you're working from home?
Maybe because it would be like easier to get off track, or to try to like maybe even slack, or just lose sight of like where you're at and try to be like physically present when you're like working remotely from home.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And a lot of people said very similar things. Prone to distractions, like everything is kind of in front of you. You can easily be distracted by like what is in your actual house. It's hard to be prepared, and like having to figure out a good work-life balance. Hannah, would you mind clicking through? So the first thing we want to talk about a little bit is like, because we're all kind of transitioning from possibly using computers in an office or even just like being in a different location to being in our houses, like how can we have a better work-life balance with our personal stuff and our work stuff? And that can be a lot harder when you're like stuck in your house. So these two examples right here, the Great Suspender and Toby, are extensions you can add to Chrome, and I believe they might also be on Firefox, so that you can get rid of tabs a lot easier and also have a productivity tab system so that you don't have to like search through bookmarks in order to find your like lost websites. But these kind of make it a little easier to organize like what you were looking at, why you were going to those different sites and things like that, and have a better control over what those are. And then it's also a very good practice to turn your computer off at night. It helps with the computer speed. It also helps with the computer's energy, because it's not great for it to just like continually be on forever. And of course, as we're all at home, we want to make sure that we're thinking about our internet speed, which of course is not like, it's not always the best depending on like what city you're in, what town you're in, and like the internet in your area, but like try your best to reboot your modems once or twice a week if you can. And there's usually a reset button on the back of the modems that you can do. And then see if you're a part of an organization that can like pay for you to get fast internet, because if you're now forced to like be at home to work, you need a computer to be able to function for a lot of our jobs, especially as we transition to have our work be more online than it used to be possibly. And then notifications. So it's really important to figure out what notification system works best for you and your distraction level, and like what you actually want to be reminded of. So you can get notifications for like pretty much anything you're on, like Google Calendar, Slack, Zoom, like many different things. So think about like what would be helpful for you to get notification on your desktop or through email or that kind of stuff. And then what wouldn't be helpful and that could be kind of distracting to you. And that can be both for what can be on your computer desktop and maybe through your phone, because you can set things up that way too. So think about what you want in order to make sure that you feel the most organized with your work.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna show folks for a second. This is the Chrome extension that Mickey was talking about, the Great Suspender. I have it right here. It's fantastic because Chrome eats up so much active memory and will totally slow down your computer if you, especially if you have a lot of tabs. What this does is it puts your tabs to sleep. And it means that, you know, if you haven't been to a tab in 15 minutes, it just deactivates. It's there, but it's asleep. And then when you go, you can go back and unsuspend them, right? So it's fantastic for speeding up your computer during the day.
Cool. Hannah, do you mind if I share and show what Toby looks like? Because it might be helpful for people too.
Sure.
Cool. So just real quick. So this is another extension called Toby, which is good for like tab organization. And it basically takes whatever you have, whatever tabs you have, and lets you put them into categories that show up as soon as you open a new tab. So you don't have to like search through your bookmarks to figure out stuff, keep all the tabs open all the time. You can just put them into categories like this, and then just open them when you need to. And that way you can kind of like not worry about having so many open all the time, and that slows your internet speed down. And you can make it so that you open all these at the same time. You can move them around, and whenever you open new tabs on your computer, they show up on the side here, and you can just easily drag and drop them into the different categories. So it's been really helpful for me recently to try and organize all of my stuff.
Cool. I see a couple of questions about that. So that was what Mickey just demoed was Toby, and before it was the Great Suspender, or there's also one if you like to use Firefox, is another one there. But Firefox eats up a lot less active memory than Chrome. So, and you know, what Mickey was just talking about in terms of notifications is so important. How many of us are like, are you getting pinged all the time with your notifications? Like, is this a thing for you? Like, chat in if you're, you know, you're getting pinged a lot. Yeah, right? I mean, yes. In fact, I mean, you know, we do a lot of trainings, right? And we have a lot of people coming and speaking in the trainings, and we're constantly realizing that people have pings going on while they're doing trainings, and it's distracting everybody else. They're meetings, right? Getting pinged all the time. So here are some articles that really everybody should read. Actually a book, Take Back Your Life, but it's designed for people using Outlook, and it's all about managing to take your life back from all these notifications. And there's some research that shows, actually, here's an article that talks about how the research shows that it can take 23 minutes on average to refocus. I think we're getting a little, let's see, someone needs to be muted. Okay. It can take up to 23 minutes, sorry about that, to refocus. So that really what we need to do is stop the notifications, like really minimize the really think about what you absolutely need. And we're going to talk about how to do that as a team. Now, the next thing, scheduling blocks of time for specific work. Chat in if you do that. Do you schedule specific blocks of time where, you know, you just block things off? Maybe you turn your email off, you like close that out, and you minimize it. You're very intentional about minimizing interruptions. This can be super, super helpful. Yeah, absolutely, Sky. Everything on Google Calendar, sometimes like setting up a meeting with yourself, right, to get this thing done or that thing done. The other thing is, does anybody use Boomerang as a tool in your Gmail? This is a tool that, yes, Najla, do you want to chat? Those of you who are using it, maybe explain what you find it useful for. Tristan, yeah, what do you like about Boomerang? So this is a tool. What I like about it is that it enables me to pause my inbox without shutting down email. So I can set up a meeting with myself to get XYZ I need done. And then a lot of my work is our work, right, is sending emails. So I want to be able to use my email. I just need to not have constant interruptions from emails coming in. And Boomerang enables you to do that. It has some other things that are also useful in terms of pinging you when like someone hasn't responded after a certain number of days to your email and things like that. But Gmail is now doing that a little bit itself as well. Scheduling emails, yeah. Okay, back to you, Mickey.
Great. Okay, so as we're all on now, we're using Zoom to have this online meeting, and some of you said you're familiar with Zoom and other things, and some of you might not be, but I know we're all working from home, so it feels like a necessity, but like, what do you think some of the uses and of the effectiveness, what are some of the effective uses of having meetings online like this?
How are you all using online meetings?
Right, meeting with a lot of people everywhere. Communicating face to face, so it's like feels better than just having a large conference call with just people's voices. That's true, yeah. Helps you stay connected. Yeah, those are all good answers. Disability justice, that's important too. Is like if everyone can't be somewhere physically in person, even before all this happened with coronavirus, you can still have a large meeting with folks. Yeah, so like y'all said, having kind of like a one-on-one and to be able to like talk with your members, talk with your colleagues, talk with your coworkers, like on a system like this is very helpful. You can see people's faces. And then also there is the option to call on the phone too, even if they don't have like the video function. And it helps with a lot of large or small group planning. So one way to do that is either if you're having a small meeting with a few people, like on Zoom, for instance, and you just like can talk as a group, but also if you have a larger meeting, there is an option for Zoom to have breakout rooms to make it a bunch of small group things as if you were in a room with small groups. And then, yeah, you can use it to connect with folks like throughout your day. Maybe you're co-working with someone like during a lunch or something, or like sometime during the day. You can use it for a lot of different things that aren't just work, like meditation, taking breaks with folks. It's just like another way to connect with folks on like a more human to human basis, even though it's through technology. And then it's available for anybody who you send the link to, like, like this meeting, for example, like as long as we send the links out, you don't just have to be part of that one organization. You can bridge it across like people all around the country or the world, really. And then what's going to come up next are just some tips from Amnesty, and then some examples of a slideshow they did on like the effectiveness of online meetings. So I want y'all to check that out, and also a couple of other ones to like think about ways to facilitate online meetings in the most effective manner. And one way that at my job that is helpful for us to do is that we have a commitment to, as much as possible, if we can, be on the camera when we're on meetings so that we can like kind of see people and it feels more personal. Like, of course, we know sometimes things happen, you can't always do that, but as much as possible, do that. And then having like a plan and an agenda and like notes being taken for our meetings, so it feels a lot more structured, in that you're here together and things don't just feel lost. And it feels like the structure of not being in person is still there.
Great. I just realized that this is not really optimized here. Sorry. Hold on a second. I'm just enlarging this. There we go. Okay. Yeah. Chat in if you who actually plans in their organization that to have like an online lunch together, just to kind of eat lunch and be on a Zoom meeting or something together and chat. Yeah. How is that? And for meditation and yoga, how do you guys like that? The ones that are using this to kind of just have lunch together. How do you easily toggle between Zoom and agendas on Google Docs, for example? So this is a good question. And I also saw someone else talking about the challenge of doing multilingual meetings. So let's actually talk about that.
Yeah.
Mickey, do you have any experience with that you want to share?
I do actually, yeah. So my organization, our base is a lot of folks who speak English, but also a lot of folks who speak Spanish or are bilingual in English and Spanish. So we've been trying to experiment with how to have effective interpretation through Zoom and our online meetings, because we can't meet as much in person anymore. It's much easier in person. So one of our organizers, we work with a language justice collective in North Carolina, and it was a combination of using a phone line for the interpretation like through Zoom, and then like there was a way that she could get the function so that you could like set it for English and Spanish at the bottom with the tools. And we're trying to figure out what third-party things can attach to Zoom to make it a lot easier also, but having a phone line call in with an interpreter and then giving the folks who need that line that phone number so they can call in and hear it while the call is going on seemed pretty effective. So that is a good way to do it. There's another way to do it that might be a little more difficult unless you have someone who is good at this, is that you can use closed captioning during the call itself, but someone has to physically type in everything unless you get a third-party app attached to it that can do that for you. So those are a few ways, and then we're trying to figure out better ways and talk to like the folks at Zoom to see what they've done in the past too.
Is that, let's see, I lost this chat is going fast and furious here. So if anybody wants to unmute themselves, okay, Miguel, do you want to unmute yourself and share what your problem has been or what experience you have so far? Or if anybody else has experience with doing multilingual?
Yeah, I think this is Miguel from Casa, and Mickey already shared a lot about the social justice, social language collective, and I know Ada Wagner. I think we're gonna have a training or a class, something about it, because most of our members, we have a town hall the other day about cancel the rent, and it was more than 100 people, and mainly in English, in Spanish, sorry, mainly in Spanish, but there was some English speakers there, and they were totally lost, of course. So that's when we realized that, in some of our meetings, of course, we're gonna have, we're always gonna have bilingual, whether some monolinguals, whether Spanish only or English only. So we wanted to learn how to do that. So I know we can learn from that as well.
Yeah. So, the only thing that I'll throw into the mix, but I think Mickey's example is more to the point than this. We at SMT, we have to do multilingual sessions, but the way we did it was we were actually beta testing Zoom's interpreter functionality before it was working. We tested it and it failed abysmally, and then they told us they'd fixed it. So hopefully it's working now. And I think that's probably the way to go. But another way to go would be to use a conference calling tool, and that's what we've done for global. Actually, it could really go either way. I just think that using conference calling tools in conjunction with Zoom or whatever you're using for live streaming can be useful for simultaneous interpretation. In fact, Miguel, in your live streaming the other day that I was watching, I think you guys did that. I think you had a Spanish language phone number that people could call in on, that was using a conference calling tool. Okay, and then someone had asked about what's the best way to say have a Zoom meeting but also be working on a shared document? I mean, I use split screens all the time, right? So just, bringing the screen size in for this, and then, creating another split like this. And so I got the Zoom meeting. Okay. Now, in terms of, this, the only other thing I wanted to point out here is that this is a really excellent guide, Leading Groups Online. So chat in if you have experience with Training for Change. That they do some really excellent training in online meetings, and this is their kind of how-to book, and this is free right now. And so we recommend that is a really good resource. And if you're interested in getting some really good training in facilitating online, this is really the place to go for it. And they have some free trainings coming up. They kind of get filled up quickly, but. Okay, so let's talk about online meeting tools. You all just are kind of pretty experienced, I think, with using Zoom, is my impression. And so I'm not sure that it makes sense to spend a ton of time on all of these differences, but there is, for your information here, a video conferencing tool comparison that we put together. And you can see it kind of compares the features of Google Hangouts, Google Hangouts Meet, Zoom, free, Zoom paid. And then there are some other tools here, Maestro Conference, Microsoft Teams, formerly Skype. And then chat in, has anybody heard of Jitsi or Big Blue Button? Chat in if you have. So I don't necessarily recommend these. I want to mention them though, because both of them fall into, they're kind of the two main tools that get talked about if you need a more secure tool for video conferences. And they both have real significant downsides though. Jitsi is pretty glitchy unless you have just a few people on, and both of them you essentially have to host yourself. Like you set up your own hosting of it. It's open source technology, and that way you control, like instead of Zoom having your data, and if a government comes to Zoom and asks for it, they're going to hand it over. In this case, with either of these tools, you own your data. It stays on your server, and that's it. Because with Zoom, they say it's encrypted, but it's only encrypted from like here to Zoom. It's not encrypted, like at Zoom, they have your data. So, and then the other, but again, unless you have a threat analysis, like a threat model where state actors are a significant threat, this is probably not the thing to worry about. It's probably the thing to do is to make sure you're following the current security protocols that Zoom is recommending, if that's what you're using, in terms of not allowing anyone to, restricting who can host, who can screen share, and having passwords and that kind of thing. The other tool that I want to mention is Toasty. Has anybody heard of Toasty? It's a brand new tool. So I especially think this could be really an interesting tool for youth groups. this is, it's brand new. They're like, yeah, really new, just in the last year. And this is a tool that enables you to have a meeting, video meeting with up to 50 people. It maxes out at 50. Costs $39 a month, or there's a free version. And it enables people who are in the meeting to get to know each other a lot better. So you can do breakouts, but you can do breakouts based on people answering some questions, and then it matches them up based on how you want them to get matched up based on how they answer those questions. You know, like for example, if you're a youth group and you're doing a video conference with, you know, a bunch of members, and some of them are interested in organizing on this issue and some of them on that issue, or some of them live in this neighborhood or that neighborhood, you can decide, I want to match them up based on either similarities or actually mix them up, right? Based on, like, you want people who are answering differently from each other. And then it enables you to actually orchestrate, like there's games, it's kind of game-ish. It's really pretty fun. It enables you to set up these little kind of games that people can use, like flipping cards over, and it asks them to share about a particular question that you can set up. And so people have a structured way of, like, if you're going to have breakouts for 5 or 10 minutes, you have a structured way that all these breakouts can actually have fun together and learn about each other. And then you can bring them all back into the main room. How does that sound? I'm really interested to hear whether you feel like any reactions to that, to the idea that how I described that tool. Do you think it could be useful for some of what you're doing? Yeah, really, yeah, okay. So anyway, something to experiment with. And like I said, they have a free version. The free version only lets you do 1 meeting a month, I think it is. And plus it has the branding, the Toasty branding on it, but it's something to start with anyway. Okay. Is it more secure than Zoom? No, I don't think so. No, definitely not.
Cool.
Let's see, back to you, Mickey.
Great, thank you. So before, I know that, like, it seems like a lot of folks are pretty familiar with Zoom, and maybe have used it in the past. So, like, and right now, what things on Zoom have been helpful for y'all? Like, any tips or like features on it that you feel like have been very useful to have? Right, polls, breakout rooms. Yeah, okay, that's a good, I can mention something about that too. With the Zoom bombing, it's been happening a lot from white supremacist groups, and like far right groups have just been coming on to people's meetings, Zoom bombing them. So having a security plan around Zoom is very important in this moment. Whiteboard, that's interesting. I haven't really used Whiteboard a lot, but I'm glad it works for y'all. Waiting rooms for security, yes, definitely. Cool. Hannah, do you mind going through?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Okay, so I'm going to go through just a few features, and of course there's a lot more. So one thing to keep in mind when you're thinking about getting Zoom or using Zoom for your organization is thinking about how you want to use it as a staff, or maybe like with members. There's a free version of Zoom where you can get as many free accounts as you want, but the limitations are that you only have up to like 40, 45 minutes for each meeting, and then it limits the size of the amount of people who can come to your meetings. And that could be fine for what y'all need. So like, if that's good, you get pretty much everything else except for just like, there's those limitations. And then it's like a few other things you can't do with it either. You can't do the webinar feature unless you pay for it too. But so when you pay for Zoom, I would recommend figuring out how many people in your organization would need their own separate accounts, so you don't run into an issue of having just one or a few, so that if somebody wants to have a meeting, you can't have overlapping meetings on the same account. So having multiple accounts per like staff member or per like teams or something like that could be really useful to make sure that people can all have their meetings and not run into each other. And then with a paid account, you can have up to 300 people in like a regular Zoom meeting. And then for the webinar, it gets a lot larger. But the only limitations with the webinar is that you can't see people's faces unless they're panelists or hosts. So it's probably more for like a presentation sort of a thing, but you can have way more people than 300. Whereas this sort of a meeting, we can like theoretically see everybody's face on their cameras if they want to put them on and like interact a lot more with participants.
Hey, Mickey,
Um,
I'm just wondering if we can respond to, because some folks may know a bunch
yeah.
of this stuff, but there are some things that people have questions of. Do you, what people are asking about the whiteboard? Um, if anyone has experience with whiteboarding on Zoom, can you unmute yourself and share about that? And then there was a question that someone said that did Zoom lift the free account time limit during the pandemic?
They
I don't
did
know.
for schools, but not in generally. But like all school systems can use without the time limit for free.
Good to know. Let's see.
Um, let's see. Yeah. So from my understanding, the whiteboard is kind of similar also to like annotation, but it's just like literally a whiteboard and you write on it as if like anyone can like write on it. I think you can give remote access to other people to write on it. So you can kind of write in real time on the screen. And
Can
then
we do that
annotation.
now? Can we demo it?
Sure. Yeah.
Ah,
I
uh,
believe you can because you're sharing your screen.
So yeah, it seems like we're not set, like we're clueless about this. So we're,
Oh, I know how to do it.
do
So
you?
if you can you unshare your screen
Yeah.
real quick? Okay, so if I go to share screen, might not be turned. I might have to turn it on or something. I think if you go to share screen, there should be an option if you turn it on that says whiteboard, like right next to like your desktop and all that. And then it brings up like a whiteboard on the screen, and then you can write on it with the annotation feature.
Hmm. And so Chester used it to teach and for math tutoring. Uh, yeah, I wonder what a use case for that would be though for a typical organizing group. Um,
I
I'm
mean,
not
you
sure.
could brainstorm together, like each write on the board in real time, like to kind of work out ideas. So that could be a good way to do it. Icebreaker, that's also a good point.
Yeah.
Playing different games. Yeah, mapping, that's an interesting way to do it. Yeah.
But I have to say, whenever I've tried to write with the mouse, it's just really hard. So I, I have to be convinced. I have to like try that out. I'm not sure about that. Whether it's really actually practical or just a really nice idea. I don't know. Yeah, good with touch screens for sure.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And if you have an iPad and like the pencil, it'll probably be helpful for that too. Yeah, true.
Yeah.
The same thing, yeah, that Channing said with the Wickham board and pen.
Cool. So do you want to do you want to go back to screen sharing on your end, or do you want me to do it?
You can do it, that's fine.
Okay. Oh my God, what happened here? Oh no. Sorry, folks. I've got the wrong thing here. 1 second.
Oh, that's a really good idea. Prep the whiteboard so you have graphs set up before you have the call and then just share and see the graph already.
Gosh, I think I'm gonna have to have you share.
That's fine. I have it
I
open.
lost the window that was.
No problem. Okay. So yeah, y'all can feel free to keep sharing other features y'all know about in Zoom because, you know, everyone's been using it, so y'all might know stuff that I haven't used too. And on the staff that I work on, it's very helpful depending on how large your staff is and the level of like, you know, like tech experience in your staff to have one or two people kind of in charge of like onboarding into Zoom and also just like generally adding people as users and like giving them accounts because you don't want so many people be able to do it so that you have no control over what's going on. But you also want to make sure there's like a central like few people who really know it and can like help everyone understand if they're not familiar with it. The breakout rooms. Oh, sorry. Someone else's question was how many people can you have with the free accounts? I just looked it up and it's 100 people. So for the free accounts, 40-minute limit and up to 100 participants. And with breakout rooms, you can have up to 50 breakout rooms with as many people as you have on your call. And then only the host, though, can assign the breakout rooms. And you can set it up so you pre-assign it before the call when you're creating the meeting on your Zoom account. So like if you already know who's going to be in your meeting and you have like their email addresses or things like that, you can just pre-assign it. And then as soon as the call happens, everyone will go into it. Oh, wait.
No, I'm sorry. I just shared my screen again.
Okay.
Yeah. So go ahead, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, and then breakout rooms are on the free account too. Can you, I think there was like maybe 2 more.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
And just a couple other helpful things. So like y'all already kind of mentioned things around annotation and screen sharing and whiteboard. And then also it's helpful to know that when you're hosting a meeting, you can make it so that only the host is able to screen share versus participants able to screen share, or both. So that's helpful to think about when you're setting up a meeting. And then for just like very useful, like fast setting of meetings, you should download the Zoom scheduler extension for Google Calendar, so that literally if you open Google Calendar and just have it start a meeting, you can make it say like set as Zoom meeting and just make it immediately a Zoom meeting from your account. So you don't have to like necessarily go log into Zoom and create a meeting there and then share links. You can just do it automatically from Google. And there's also there's also a Zoom app that you can download to your computer so that you can easily open it and not have to go to website too. It has a phone app, and I listed the first thing that's hyperlinked on top of here is a link to Zoom's tutorial page. So they have a tutorial for pretty much every single feature they have in Zoom. And if you go to this page, they're all maybe between like 1 and 5 minutes long. So if you really just don't know how to do a thing, they can will quickly teach you how to do it. And they have a bunch of live trainings and recorded trainings you can get.
Excellent.
Is there a way you can assign facilitators to break out
Can you
rooms?
answer that by chat, Mickey, if you know? Because we need to move on, I think.
Yeah, go ahead.
Excellent. Okay. So useful practices for online meetings. So a couple things. Lighting is really important. So like, for example, what are some techniques that people use to make sure that their faces are lit so that people can actually see the expressions on your face? What do you do? How do you set up your physical environment? Any thoughts on that? Yeah, like for example, in this space, I have opaque curtains that I got and put in behind me because oftentimes the sun comes in and then I'm backlit, right? That doesn't work. I have a light in front of me that I've put there, right? So that it shines the light on me, yeah. Okay, so here's another thing. This little nifty tool, Crisp, is so amazing. I think it's $35 a year. And it enables you, I'm just going to show you how it works right here. I have it going on my computer, and it mutes external noise. So the top here I have activated. Actually, I shouldn't have this on. So this mutes noise around me so that other people, like I can have all kinds of stuff going on around me. My kids can be talking, and I'll ask people, do you hear the background noise? Like, no, people don't hear it. It's amazing. And then this mutes noise coming in from other places. And I try to have this off during webinars because sometimes someone will be unmuted in the meeting. And if this is on, I'm not hearing it and I don't know to mute them. Really a fantastic. Turn off notifications before you're, and literally like, okay, if you have a Mac, you go to System Preferences, you go to Notifications right here, and on a Mac, I haven't found a way to do it easily. You just you just put this on for the time, you know, and you can see I have it off. I have notifications off almost the entire day because they're so obnoxious in meetings. What do you guys do for note taking when you are having all these online meetings and you need to take notes? How do you take notes? Oh, Tristan, you can click on the top 3 lines. Fantastic. Well, I just learned something. Okay, good to know. Good to know. Excellent. Paper, documents. Okay, so I really recommend, I was a devoted like written note taker. But this like notes or whatever, if you use Microsoft, there's comparable. So this is just like, I start my meeting, I say who I'm with, I take my notes here, I can make it a small, right? And then it's totally searchable. I just click here, I can search whatever I want. If I forgot who I met with, but I remember you know, a key phrase from the meeting, whatever it is, it's fantastic. It keeps everything totally searchable. Way to go. Yeah, hosting, if you're hosting calls with more than a few people, plan ahead on how to engage everyone, be clear about the outcome you want, start on time. This is, I think, especially important when we're remote. You know, we don't know what hell and high water people went through. Sorry about all these notifications popping up here, but we just don't know what people went through to get to the meeting on time, right? And so I think that it's even more than in-person meetings. It's really respectful to start time. Back to you, Mickey.
Cool. Okay, so we're going to go a little bit into other things you can use for like video calls that like aren't as expansive as Zoom, but like can be helpful for like small groups. So a thing that you can do, especially with people who may not have computers but have phones, is you can use FaceTime and Facebook Messenger app to call up to 6 people. We'll call up to 50 people, but have 6 people be shown on the screen. And in Facebook Messenger, you can create as many small groups of people as you want who have Facebook accounts. You know, that's unfortunately how it works, but you don't have to have the Facebook app open and a Messenger app. There's separate apps now. But you can, if you create a group of small people in Facebook Messenger, you can like call them and then they'll see a thing that says that they're like, that their phone is ringing. And like that way people who use that a lot can access that a lot easier. And like I was saying, I can have up to 50 people and show the top 6 people who are talking. And then WhatsApp, a lot of folks, especially across the world, use WhatsApp because it's easy to use it in other countries as well. Like you can call up to 4 people on WhatsApp, and it's like a little more secure than Facebook Messenger is. So yeah, it's a lot more user friendly, and a lot of people will have phones. Okay, and someone in the chat was saying Signal is a good tool that's encrypted and has one-to-one video. So that's good to know too. And you can call people on Signal as well.
Yeah, I was just saying that the problem with Signal is that it's just one-to-one video.
Yeah.
That's the limitation. I mean, Signal is the best secure option, but it does not work for group video calls. Yeah, so platforms that harvest less of your data. Well, this is what we were talking about just a little while about Jitsi and Big Blue Button. Those are two that don't harvest your data, but you either, they kind of have to be hosted. And they're not kind of big corporations that have lots and lots of bandwidth that you can just use. You have to host your own instance of it, or you can use like May 1st, and there's other places where you can use Jitsi. But if there's lots of people using it at that moment that you want to use it, oh well, you're not gonna, it's gonna be very glitchy. Like sometimes the audio doesn't work, sometimes people get dropped. And generally speaking, you get more than like 6 or 10 people on it.
Yeah, and like I said this earlier in the chat, but just in case the other people didn't see it, there's ways that you can mitigate around security stuff with Zoom too, with your meetings. You can enable the waiting room feature. You can make sure that there's a setting that's on that says that if you kick people off, they can't get back on. And then there was another person who mentioned this earlier, having multiple folks who are helping you with the meeting. Some people may be looking at the chat, some people looking at the members coming in. So if you see anything suspicious, you can just have a person in charge of like muting folks, kicking them out, things like that. So those can be ways to mitigate some of those security issues in Zoom. And we, as an organization, like to not like have the recordings go to Zoom Cloud, just because we don't know where that's going to go. And at a certain point, they start having you pay a lot of money for it. So whenever I'm recording anything, I just download it to my computer and send it out later, which feels like at least one more step away from them kind of just existing in this one area up here.
Great. So just real quick, conference calling tools. Does anybody use conference calling tools, either say freeconference.com or uberconference.com for any purpose? You know, chat in like what you guys use it for, because I don't, other than simultaneous interpretation, I'm not sure that there is a clear use of it at this point. Yeah. So anyway, just making a note of that. Okay, so let's talk about remote team practices and policies. So one issue is hardware and internet speed minimums, resources, whether your organization is going to provide resources to help staff with this. Another possible policy for your remote team would be, are there community building activities that you really want to encourage and support via video, like folks having lunch together if they want to, or meditations, or taking breaks together. There are ways organizationally, right, that you can like support that and encourage it, even though it's obviously optional. Does anybody experience using co-working blocks? So this would be where, for example, you connect with a coworker and you both get on a video call together and you work on something together. Maybe you're working on the same document, maybe the same project, but you're actually, and you might turn off your screen sharing, your webcam, you might, mute yourselves, but then like whenever one has the question of the other, you can just unmute yourselves. Yeah, I see a bunch of people have experienced. We just started doing that for one of my other organizations. Yeah, it's been a great way to stay connected to my favorite office mate. Yeah, so I really love this. I don't know, like if I've been procrastinating on getting a particular job done and it's a little complicated and I just, and there's someone else who has to work on it anyway, like it's fantastic to have that kind of accountability that for this hour, we are going to, get this done. Another thing that is used a lot now is overlapping work time. So how many of you are in organizations, maybe not a lot of you, I don't know, but like where you are in different time zones? Is that an issue for you? Where staff are in different time zones and so it can be difficult? For some of you it is, right? So do you have a policy where you really try to have at least a certain block of hours, maybe it's 3 hours in the middle of the day or something, where you really try to make sure that staff are working during that time, because it's so much easier to set up time together. Yeah, so that's another idea. Another thing would be, do you have a policy or an understanding around that the webcam, people's webcams are going to be on by default if for work meetings, including for quick unscheduled meetings? And I'm kind of a nag about this. Like I'm always asking people, like if they get on a meeting and they don't have their webcam activated, I just ask them, like, can you activate your webcam? And sometimes people just, they can't, whatever. But just to have a default that their expectation is, yes, we're going to visually connect. Like, yes, this is important. That can be useful. So then also having a clear communication channel protocol. So we're going to talk about what that could look like in a second. And a how-to board with Loom recording. So how many of you are familiar with Loom? I'm going to demo this real quick here. So Loom is right up here. It's a Chrome extension. It's free. And it just makes it incredibly easy to take short little videos. So I do this all the time. I'm going to X out my, sorry, going to X out my webcam here. And then just click start recording. Let's see, we need someone to be muted. So I'm going to share my screen. It's giving me 3 seconds. Okay, so this is a little recording of all about Loom. I'm now going to stop the recording and be done. And there we are. And then I just copy the link. And there's my link. There's my how-to recording. So super easy to use. And it's very, especially when you're working remotely and you might have like a lot of different people getting involved with the work. You might have some turnover, so you have new people, coming in. And so instead of going through everything all the time over again, you might have a board. And we're going to show you examples of a board in an app where you can have lots of how-to videos. I don't know how long the Loom videos can be. I'm not sure there's a limit. Don't know about that. I think that after a certain point of, I've never maxed out on the recording like memory, so we've never had to pay for it. But at a certain point, yeah, you have to pay for it. And then it's useful to have a staff startup board. So let's look at all of that. And then finally, do you want to track time? And some of you had asked about accountability when you're remote. How people feel about using time tracking tools can vary so much, right? Like if people feel like are going to be oppressed by the sense of I'm clocking in, then, maybe that's not a good thing, right? Personally, we use time tracking all the time. And when I'm putting in a lot of hours, the only thing that makes me feel better about it is that I'm tracking it and I have like documentation of my labor. So Clockify is a really good value if you want to be doing that. Oops, this is got a double animation going here. Okay. So let's talk about team communication protocol around what to use when. The whole idea here is how do we minimize email for our work? So let's talk about that. What kinds of protocols do you guys have? So Anjali, as a supervisor, you ask staff to message you on Google so they're there. Yep. We're going to talk about a staff startup board in a second. So the idea here is that email is really, really, really inefficient, right? Like for working as a team, we want to avoid using email in our team as much as possible because stuff gets lost, threads get crazy, document links get lost. Like it's just a bad scene. And then our inboxes get filled up and we end up spending a lot of time just trying to sort through and find stuff, right? Am I right? Like, am I describing what anybody's experience is? Just chat in. So Maria, you like email, okay? If it's working for you, great, but I'm gonna describe an alternative here. So for on-the-record use, you should use an in-app project management tool. And by on-the-record, what I'm talking about is anything that's a back and forth within the team where you are making decisions and maybe there's links to documents, there's maybe images and files and things that other team members may need. Maybe you're going to bring another team member in next and they can look back and see this is what was decided upon, here are the information that they need, right? So anything like that, you want to use a project management tool, and we're going to go over that in a second. If it's a quick ping, like either to a group or as a direct message one-on-one, like, can we schedule a meeting to go over this? Did you forget that? Little stuff, right? Then what do you use? What do you guys use to quickly ping someone else on your team or a couple of other people? GChat, Slack, Trello, Microsoft Teams. Yeah. So and you're saying text. The problem with what I would say, and again, if it works for you, great. But the problem that I think many people have with using text messages for just a quick ping is that text messages, people get a notification on their phone and it interrupts their work. It's like an emergency thing, right? And we're going to talk about that in a second. What do you use in cases of real emergency where something is super urgent? Then text, yeah, right? But otherwise, like if it's not an emergency, then why create another distraction and interruption for someone? And so, yeah, then there's urgent, like the website crashed, or, I need this from you before I can do my work. And there's like we have to get this email out, and you're not sure whether the person is at their computer. So maybe they're not seeing your Slack message. Maybe they're not seeing the GChat message. Maybe they're, right? They could be taking care of their kid or doing whatever else. And so this way you need a plan for, okay, in a situation like that, how to quickly get someone's attention if it really is urgent. And maybe it's WhatsApp, maybe it's Signal, maybe it's text. A phone call, yeah, maybe, but like not every, but a lot of people aren't answering their phones, right? So got to figure out what works. And finally, yeah, you using for meetings. And then there's rapid response group chat. What are you going to be using if you're in a situation where you have a rapid response situation that's needed? And finally, what are you using for your larger community of engagers? So your youth, your members, right? How are you communicating with them? What right now, like chat in, what are you guys using? What are you using to engage with your members besides text? So you're doing mass text, the Band app, and you know what? I'm gonna have to look into that. I don't know what the Band app is. Cool. Trello board, Remind, Instagram, Asana, GChat, all kinds of things. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it could be Slack, it could be a Google group, it could be a public board of a project management tool. I'm going to show you examples of that. Peer-to-peer or broadcast text messaging, those are all different ways. The difference between these is that some of these tools like peer-to-peer or broadcast text messaging, that's a way to get a message out to people, right? But then normally we also have a need for where to put stuff remotely, right, for folks. So then a public board where people can go there and find what they're looking for can be useful. Okay, so scheduling meetings efficiently, Calendly. Anybody use Calendly as a tool for scheduling meetings? This is so helpful. There's a free version and there's also a paid version. Free version is limited. I'm gonna actually show you my Calendly. So what's useful about this is the paid version and it's like $8 a month. So, I mean, it's not cheap if your whole team is using it, but this enables, it enables me to set up meetings of different lengths that are connected in with whatever number of either Outlook or Google calendars I want. And so it shows my availability. So this, for example, I can just get the link to it and share the link with someone, and then they can pick when they want to meet. And the nice thing about the paid version is that it enables you to also, let's see, you can have custom questions. So I'm asking people for their phone number because if someone doesn't show up for the meeting, then I can just give them a quick call or text and remind them. So that's what's useful. It is a lot of tools. Yes, I hear you. So if you're starting to feel a little overwhelmed, anybody else feeling that way? I want to check in with you guys. Yes, a lot. It's a lot. So Adam's okay. Chat in if you're also okay. You're filtering. That's really good. And this is all going to be recorded. So if you're feeling overwhelmed right now, then just chill out. Just take a deep breath. Let's all take a deep breath. And, you know, if there's one thing, remember we started it off, like if there's one thing that sounds like a thing to check out of this, that's good, right? If there's that gets you thinking a little differently, that's good. All right, and we're gonna go for another 10 minutes and that's it. So hang in there, folks. So, and we're coming to the end. We're almost at the very end here, but this is really important, this last thing. I'm gonna skip this slide. I really want you guys to see this. This is so important. So this is all about campaign management tools. And I saw someone mentioning Asana. So chat in if you use anything like either Trello, Asana, Monday.com, Basecamp. So Trello, Asana, and also chat in. What did you use them for? Like, what were those of you who have experience, what's useful about campaign management tools like that? Or they're called project management tools. So I'm going to start showing you some examples here. Because if you aren't using a campaign management tool, like, I don't know how you do it. I mean, my brain would short circuit. So here's an example. First of all, we're going to go over leader or member public boards. There's a lot of them on climate organizing and a lot of youth boards, actually. So let's take a look at this one. So Trello is free. This is an example of a board, and I think some of it may be out of date. Like I just Googled for different boards to show you all. And so I'm not quite sure how like recent these are. But so in Trello, it's a Kanban layout. Kanban means there's columns. So see the first column, it shows you about this board. So it's an introduction. So let's say you set up a board like this for your members so that there's a place they can all come to and get the latest. And unlike Facebook, like setting up a Facebook group or something, in this case, you can have back and forths right there and everything's there. You don't have to worry about people not getting, like they can come and visually get access to everything. And so then you can upload, like this whole column is about this issue, and this whole column apparently is logos that people can use. And so there's resources and they can download what they need. So this is a really one use of a tool. And here's another example. And these are set to public. So you can use this internally without setting it to public. So you're using it for interacting with your team and planning out various things, and you can have it set on private. There's more examples there. So here's another example from, we started off, we used Trello for many years. And so with Trello, everyone can add to, and anyone you give access to can edit the board. And then if you add documents and links there, you know, you'd have to give people access to be able to edit any documents that you link there, just like anytime you share a link. So we used to use Trello, now we're using monday.com, but here's an example from our old Trello account, SMT's old Trello account. So this is a board we created for our board of directors. And you can see here, there's documents, board alerts, things that are done and taken care of. And so, you know, we would have a board meeting and we could be sharing this and talking about things coming up and sharing resources, and everybody knows where to find stuff. Here is the same board for our board of directors, but it's in monday.com, which is a really great tool also. And so you can see here, you know, board alerts and meetings, and our secretary will upload the meetings to this and can ping all the other directors. They will get the notification in their email, and then they can just come here and all the documents they need are right in one place. And so then here's an example. We talked about staff startup board. So this is our staff startup board. So we have a template that has listed all the things that need to happen when someone joins SMT's team. Has their email been activated? Has their bio been approved? You know, have they filled out their tax forms? Have they been activated on this and that? So, and they can just work with this. Find anything we need, anybody, follow up with them. We can put deadline on it. They can mark the status. Is it done? Are they stuck? You know, and so yeah. Staff how-tos. How much setup is it for Monday? It's really quick. Yeah, this does not take much time at all. Like, you can set up a board in, I mean, 5-10 minutes, right? Like it's very quick to get going. These things are designed to be quick and easy. So this is our board for staff how-tos. Whenever we run into something that's a little complicated and we have to show someone how to do it, we take a Loom video and just stick it here, and then we can just refer people to it. The cost for Trello is free, and for Monday we have the pro account for 2 people. And what's fantastic about it is that you can invite as many other people in for free as guests. So only 2 people in our account, and I think it's $40 a month for that. And basically then those 2 people can set up boards, and once the boards are set up, then any guests can create tasks and do whatever is needed. And so we have 50 guests in the account. Why did we switch from Trello to Monday? So Trello is useful if you like the Kanban design where things are in columns. And Monday is just a different visual format. It's kind of what you like visually. Yeah, I mean, Monday also has dependencies, which we didn't end up using much, but a dependency means that, we go into this in depth in our training on campaign management tools, which is linked right here. It's more than I can go into right now, but I think it really depends on visually what appeals to you more. And if you're not sure, there's no harm in start playing around with both and seeing what you think. Like, that's what I would do. I'm going to stop here and wrap up. We're going to skip this piece on digital security, but it's there if you need it. I'm going to mention that there's a Slack channel for folks working on all this stuff and organizing and remote teams and everything. And if you are interested in joining that, here's the link. I'm going to skip this. You can look into this if you want to. And the last thing is going to be to say where you are, to come back to this slide deck. And I'm going to share the link right to the slide and invite you to say where you are. And there's 3 of these slides. So if your first name begins from A to I, you're on this slide, and then the next slides if you're later in the alphabet. And I'm inviting you to say where you're at right now. So there's the comfort zone in the middle, where there's not a lot of learning. You already knew all this stuff. It's like, been there, done that. There's the discomfort zone, where there's a lot of learning and you're not too overwhelmed. And then there's the alarm zone, where you're shut down. Like, this has seriously maxed you out and it just seems completely overwhelming. And so we really want to know, where are you? And I'm seeing people filling this out. And while you're doing that, I'm also going to throw up a quick evaluation poll. Let's see, is there an evaluation poll here?
No, I think that wasn't in the email that you sent me.
Okay, all right. So, well then I would just love folks to chat in. Would you chat in about just how you're feeling about this session? It's really important so we can get input for designing the next session for you all next week. And yes, there is a link here for feedback too. So that's definitely an option. And I'm just gonna go back and see where people are. Gosh, I'm so relieved that there's not too many of you in the alarm zone. Super happy about that. And it seems like there's a bunch of you in the, I can't believe don't tell me there's only 7 of you whose first names begin with J to Q. Okay, we need some more, we need people to show up here. Yeah, you J to Qers are underrepresented here. So I'm going to turn this back over. Mickey, it's always a pleasure to train together. Just want to say how much I enjoyed it with you and being with all of you today. And I'm going to turn this back over to you, Eric.
Great. All right. Well, thank you so much, Hannah and Mickey. I think we really appreciate, and you can see all the love coming for y'all in the chat right now. Really appreciate this. Want to remind everybody that this is just session 1. Session 2 is next Friday, the 17th at 2 p.m. Eastern, and we're going to be focusing more on organizing tools. So we talked a lot about tools here for your remote staff team. Next week, we're going to talk a lot more about tools for organizing your members, your base, and beyond. So definitely tune in for that. If you have thoughts that you want to ping us with about what you especially want us